In this video, I'm going to show you 4 examples of how you can apply the square root method to some application problems that use quadratics. And the first one deals with the area of a square. And it says in number 15 here, find the value of x, which is part of our side length. Our side length of our square is 4x. Find the value of x for the square, and then we'll do that for the triangle. And what we are asked to do is round to the nearest tenth. So tens, hundreds, thousands, your decimal places. So that will mean 1 decimal place when we round. Now, in order to solve this, you need to know that area of a square uses actually a square, because the area is equal to a side length squared. And that's kind of what square means for your area, length times width. And so if I know the area is 28 units, then I'm going to set that equal to 4x. I'm going to sub that in for my side length squared. Now, 4x times 4x is going to be 16x squared. So to solve for my x, I need to isolate the letter x by dividing both sides by 16. Now this is not going to be a nice number, and that's okay. We can use our calculator. 28 divided by 16. I'm going to use 1.75 because we're going to be rounding to the nearest tenth anyway. And now what I'm going to do is apply the square root to both sides. So square root of 1.75 could be, I applied that symbol, so plus and minus 1.3. The 2 here is not going to round that 3 up. Now since I'm dealing with a square and an actual dimension, I'm going to use the positive answer only, because a negative side length doesn't make sense for a for an actual square. So use the positive because a negative length, how do you spell length? Doesn't make sense. So my answer is just going to be positive 1.3, and since my units was feet, I'm going to say feet. And then I'll just kind of highlight that so that we know where my answer is, we don't get lost. Now for the area of a triangle, you're going to need to know that the triangle area is equal to a half times the base times the height. And so I'm going to substitute in the things that we know here. The area is 46 inches squared, and that's going to equal a half times my base of 2x times my height of 2x, which is the same thing as a half of 2 times 2, or 4x squared. And so half of that, half of 4 is going to be 2x squared. So now I'm going to divide both sides by 2. 46 divided by 2 is 23. And now I'm going to apply my square root. So the square root of 23 is positive and negative. Here we go. Now if I round, that 9 is going to round that 7 up to an 8. And since I'm using a triangle, a side length should be positive, not negative. So I'm only going to use the 4.8, and since we had inches, I'm going to write over here inches. And that's my answer. Okay, now for number 17, it says you have 70 feet of fabric to make a quilt. What is the radius of the largest circular quilt you can make? And so again, I have kind of for reference up here, the area of a circle uses what's called the radius. It's the distance from the center of your circle out to the edge. And the area is equal to 3.14, or pi, times our radius squared. And so I'm going to use 70 here for the area. I'm going to use 3.14 for our radius, so since I'm rounding. So now if this is being multiplied, I'm going to divide by that 3.14. So 70 divided by 3.14. If you want to use the actual pi button, it'd be slightly more accurate. So we'd round here 22.29299, or 29. I'm going to go a couple decimal places because I'm not ready to round for my final answer. So I'm going to do 3, because these two 9s are going to round that 2 up. Well, actually, just this one 9 is, but that 9 is going to round that up, and it's going to end up rounding to a 3 here. And that's for my radius squared. Now I'm going to apply the square root to both sides to solve for my radius. So the square root of 22.293 is going to be plus and minus 4.7. Now for a radius, again, we want to use the positive answer. Positive makes sense. 4.7 feet. Since feet is my unit, I'm going to put feet into my answer. And then over here, the square yard, it says the square yard you're going to mow has an area of 9,600 square feet. What is the side length of your yard? Okay, so again, a square here has 906,000 square feet. And if we have a square, all of our sides are the same. Round your answer to the nearest tenth of a foot. So 9,600 is equal to our side length squared, because that's the area of our square. So we're just going to end up applying our square root symbol here. So square root of 9,600, 97.97. This 7 is going to round that 9 up, which is going to actually round up our answer to be 98 feet. So if I write this out, it would be plus and minus 97.9. Now this is going to round up to an 8. Now that 8's going to round that up to a 0. And so I'm going to round it up to a 98 feet. Because if it said nearest tenths, the 7 is going to round that 9 up. So nearest tenths would have to be a 0.0. So 98 feet. And that's our application problems.